Welcome back, survivalists. Malcolm here with Survival Know-How, and today I'm going to teach you guys how to survive the zombie apocalypse. Stay tuned. First, I just want to start off by saying that zombies are not real. I'm sorry, and they never will be. But what you can prepare for is extreme civil unrest, biological warfare, and the complete collapse of the United States government, which I think pretty closely mimics a zombie pandemic. So let's jump right into it. Let's start by covering civil unrest. So what I mean by this is that there's rioting, there's looting, there's murdering, there's stealing, there's raping, complete chaos, no law and order whatsoever. So in a situation like this, the first thing that you want to have is a really nice assault rifle, something like this. So this here is an AR-15 pistol. So it's essentially a short barrel rifle, an SBR, but calling it an AR-15 pistol is kind of a loophole that allows you to have a much shorter barrel on it. And it's a pistol because it doesn't actually have a buttstock. It's got this goofy thing right here, and it's meant to be held with one arm. But having a short barrel like this makes it much more advantageous in interior situations where you have to clear rooms, go around corners. You know, having a long barrel on something can make it a little awkward maneuver, especially with close quarter and mid-range situation. And now if we're talking about looting and rioting and murders and plundering and all this stuff, there's a military tactic called show of force. And I think show of force is very applicable in this type of situation. When we're talking about civil unrest like this, there's gonna be sheep and there's gonna be wolves. And the sheep herders that usually protect the sheep are not gonna be around anymore. So it's gonna be up to you if you're gonna be a sheep or a wolf. Now these wolves, they're hunting around, they're looking for easy prey. And by having that show of force and looking intimidating and looking like you are not gonna be an easy target, I think that goes a long, long way. And that's why I like an AR-15 pistol or an SBR, short barrel rifle. I think it's very effective at close quarters and mid-range combat, but it's also just looks really cool and really intimidating. Now there are some disadvantages to having such a short barrel, and that's really that the accuracy at long ranges is just not as effective. So I also recommend having a more traditional rifle like this, something with a much longer barrel, a much more traditional adjustable buttstock like this, and with the sight on it. Definitely see how long this is compared to the SBR, the pistol there, and how more awkward it would be to maneuver around corners with this, try to clear room with something this long, you know, compared to something much, much shorter that you can get in really close like this. So two different weapons and two different goals and functionality. Now, I think this is also pretty intimidating. You know, most people are not gonna be walking around the zombie apocalypse with an AR-15 like this, so on the intimidation factor, it's still pretty high. Another thing to note is that these are both AR-15s. Parts are completely interchangeable between these two rifles, and I think that's an important factor. You know, if it is the total collapse of the United States government, it's going to be hard to find replacement parts and ammunition for a lot of your weapons, a lot of your tools. So one reason I like these rifles so much is that they're incredibly common here in America. I would go as far to say that some sort of variation of an M16, an M4, AR-15, an AR-10, you know, some variation of this is probably the most common assault rifle in America. I don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty confident on that. So the United States military, this is kind of their standard weapon, an M16 or an M4. Same thing with law enforcement. So this means it's going to be far easier to find ammunition as well as parts and tools and components for these types of rifles than really any other type of rifle out there. So that is the first thing I would get, is some sort of assault rifle. Now, if you could only get one weapon, I think you can't go wrong with a short barrel rifle or a AR-15 pistol like what I have here, because this is just great for that close quarter combat as well as mid-range targets. So moving right along, the next thing you want to get is a really nice sidearm. Now there's a lot of discussion about what makes the best sidearm. Personally, I am a huge fan of Glocks. This is the Glock 17, is the full-size 9mm Glock that they have. They have a few other ones that are a little bit shorter and a little bit shorter barrel, and they're more better for like concealed carry. So this is the full-size Glock 17. I can actually get all my fingers on there. I can't stand pistols that I can't get my pinky on there at all. Another thing is that this thing is incredibly light and comfortable. The entire body here is all made out of plastic, which makes it so light, and it really conforms to your hands very well. If you compare this to something like in a 1911, a 1911 is a very cool gun, but it is like holding a brick. It is very, very heavy compared to a Glock, and also the 1911 is not very comfortable at all. You know, you take that to the range, and after about an hour, your hand is killing you. because it doesn't really conform to your hand properly. And again, the 9mm is a very common ammunition size here in America, so in a complete chaos situation, it's going to be far easier to find 9mm, I would bet, than any other round out there. Alright, so get yourself a nice sidearm and some kind of holster for it as well. So moving right along, let's talk about some blades that I think you should have as well. Again, keeping up with that show of force theme, I am a big fan of the SOG Tomahawk. Not because this is the most practical and useful weapon, just because it looks really intimidating, really scary, and really cool. So let's say you don't have your sidearm, you don't have your rifle, and all you have on yourself is a SOG Tomahawk. The other person is going to think twice about messing with you just because you have this in your hand. This is a very intimidating looking weapon. I would not want to be on the business end of this. Really, somebody with absolutely no skill, they can still hack and slash, and they can really mess you up with something like this. So for show of force and for, you know, self-defense, I think this is actually a pretty good option right here. Also, I think this would be incredibly effective against zombies. I also think having some variation of a machete is a great option. Machetes are actually pretty useful if you're clearing brush and trying to make your way through the woods. This not as effective with zombies, but again, for that show of force factor, this is incredibly intimidating. I would not want to mess with somebody who has something like this. Now, this particular one is a saberback Bowie, and this is made by Outdoor Vital. You know, and this is not technically a machete, but I kind of consider this like a machete. It kind of serves the same purpose. All right, this is more of a traditional machete right here. And again, you know, the blades are about the same length, and I think they serve the same purpose of really just clearing brush. But even something like this, again, this is very intimidating. I would not want to mess with somebody who's carrying around machete, and having this in a complete, you know, civil unrest situation, just having this out is going to de-escalate situations. People are not going to mess with you because you have this. You also want to have a really nice full tank survival knife. So I'm a big fan of the Gerber LMF2. This one was actually issued to me when I was in the military, so it's also very common in the military, and it's just a really solid, very rugged knife, and it has a lot of different bells and whistles that you can use this. It has lashing holes if you wanted to attach it to a spear, it has a pointed pommel for breaking glass, and it's just a really solid all-around survival knife. This particular one comes with a built-in sharpener in the sheath. If you're in an urban survival situation, I think this is a fantastic tool, but also if you're in a wilderness survival situation, it's also going to be a great tool right here as well. Once again, this is the Gerber LMF2, and it's probably, you know, it's probably the survival knife that I'm most familiar with, and probably one of my favorite ones out there. So the last blade that I really recommend you have is some sort of concealed blade, all right? So a lot of this stuff you're going to keep on your belt, and it's all about show of force, but you always want to have a backup. So there's a couple different options. This here is on a lanyard, so you can keep it, you know, tucked in here. So if somehow somebody disarms you, you know, you have one last resource right here they can easily get access to. And this is just a tiny little blade. So this is one option. They also have boot knives, again, that you can kind of conceal underneath your pant leg. They also have knives, you know, pretty small knives that can go, you know, into your belt and kind of hide behind your belt. So the last one I would go for is some sort of concealed blade that the purpose is not a show of force, but it's so that you ever get captured or you're completely disarmed, you always have one last jam. If you're interested in any of these blades that I just mentioned, I'll have links down in the description below where you can find out more about them. So moving right along, let's talk about biological warfare. Not necessarily just biological warfare, but this stuff's also going to cover, you know, if there's some kind of virus or pandemic that's going across the nation like zombies, you want to be prepared for that. And there's a couple of things you can do now to be prepared for that type of situation. So the first thing you want to get is a good gas mask, and you've got several options. This is one that I used to use when I was in the military, and this is a pretty good option right here. This is the one that I'm most familiar with, and I've actually got, I think I've got 3 of these. I've got enough to cover my entire family. You can find this online for maybe about $100. There's a couple things I like about it. One, it's got a protective screen right here, and this is removable. I also like how all the visibility that it has here. It's not like individual lenses, but it's just a big screen. And I believe this is a 50mm threading on the actual canister. I believe that's what it's called. So again, that's about $100. Another option you can go with is an Israeli gas mask. So Israel at one point had enough gas masks to protect every single citizen in their country. And you can buy these incredibly cheap, $20, $30 on the secondhand market. Right? And this is kind of what it looks like. It's a much more basic gas mask, but again, it takes the exact same threading as my United States military gas mask, which is fantastic. I think it's a 50mm is what that threading's called. And as far as lifespans of gas masks, it's not really a big concern. You know, this thing was probably made in the 80s or the 90s, if I had to guess, but it's like brand new. It's never used. It's been sitting in a warehouse for a long time, and it works perfectly fine. So gas mask is great if you have to leave your house, leave your car, and come in contact with somebody who is affected by the biological warfare or the virus or the pandemic or zombie or whatever it is. You know, it kind of protects that stuff from entering your face and your body. But if you're in a real biological warfare, you want to shelter in place. You do not want to leave your house, right? That is kind of a last resort. You want to get back to your home. Gas mask may help you get back to your home, and then you just want to shelter in place. Now, there's two things that you want to stock up on. That is duct tape and some sort of plastic wrap. And the reason why is when you're sheltering in place in a biological warfare situation, you want to tape up every single window, every door, every air vent in your house, right? You do not want anything to kind of seeping in through all the little crevices and cracks around your window. So you need to stock up on some duct tape and some plastic wrap. And this is not expensive at all. You can get some drop cloths for painting. Really inexpensive. You can use shower curtains. If you had to, you could just stock up on trash bags like this. Cut them in half, and then you literally just tape these up over your windows and around your doors and around all your air vents so nothing can seep into your property. Now, if you don't have enough to cover every window, every door in your house, you may want to just isolate yourself to one single room or one single area in your house where you can cover up all the doors, windows, and air vents of that room. In this type of situation that we're talking about, that is going to be your primary goal. Don't think about, oh, I gotta leave the city and I gotta get to my bug out location. No, you want to shelter in place. I highly recommend that everybody has at least 6 months of food, water, and supplies that they could shelter in place and never leave their house for up to 6 months if they had to. Now, a situation like this may last more than 6 months, and that's when you really want to start thinking about long-term sustainability as well. So after you have enough supplies to last you 6 months, then you can also start considering, like, should I get a bow and arrow? Should I get an AR-15 rifle to use as hunting? Maybe a 22 for shooting rabbits and squirrels? You know, maybe have some water filtration system so that you can go out and get water and collect water and then filter it and drink it. But I wouldn't focus on this long-term sustainability preps until you have at least 6 months worth of preps that you could lock yourself in your house and not leave if you had to. Now, if you are sheltering in place, you also want to have an escape plan. You know, if somebody is trying to break into your property, what is your evacuation plan from that point? As an example, my plan is to shelter in place in my bedroom. That is where I keep the majority of my preps. And I could fortify my bedroom and barricade my door. And if somebody ever broke into my property, I would retreat to that room. And then I could access my attic, climb up in the attic, go on top of my garage, and then I can bug out from there. So that is my escape plan from my shelter in place. So you've got all your shelter in place preps ready and you have enough food, water, and supplies to last you 6 months. Fantastic. Now you can start focusing on a bug out bag. Keep in mind that a bug out bag is not your first option. It's actually your last resort. It is the last option that you want to execute if you have to. And you also want to have a bug out location in mind. You know, if you are evacuating your home, where are you going to? You should have that completely planned out ahead of time and have maps in your bug out bag that you can navigate to there without a problem. If you guys want to see my video, what's inside my bug out bag, click the video right over here. And don't forget to subscribe for more prepping, survival, and self-reliance videos. I'll see you guys over there.